This is the Seahawkers podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Schultz, and today we are talking to a special guest because we are talking Alabama Pro Day. But we're going to get to some news first because there was some big news on Saturday. But joining me here today to talk some Alabama football is Brent Taylor. He is the editor over at the SB Nation site, Roll Bama Roll. And of course, because we've had him on before, you remember him. Brent is a Seahawks fan, following Sean Alexander to his Seahawks. And that's why whenever we need some Alabama insight, we go to Brent. Brent, welcome back.
Hey, man, it's good to hear from you again. Kind of excited to break some news today. You actually broke that to me just now. I had been out hiking all day and had no idea anything had happened in the Seahawks world.
I know. And here I thought you were joking because I said, have you heard the news? And you said, what news? And I said, Bobby Wagner is coming back to the Seahawks. It was announced on Saturday. All of Quandre Diggs' effort on social media, I don't know if it had an impact. I want to believe that it had an impact, that Quandre Diggs is the reason for Bobby Wagner coming back to the Seahawks. And are you happy about the news, or are you indifferent? Are you maybe... we're going to be talking a lot of draft eligible players. Is this a potential move that could bump a linebacker off that maybe you had your eye on going into the draft for the Seahawks?
Well, man, first of all, Quandre Diggs gets paid, what, $18 million-ish or so to play safety. And I think, we were all like, that's a little high, but, maybe he's actually getting paid $12 million for safety and $6 million for general manager recruiter.
Right.
Because he is doing a great job.
He's putting the work in.
I know. Yeah, just a natural. So the dude will probably be a college coach and recruiter after this, right?
It has to be.
Like the next Pete Carroll coming through.
I'd be into it.
I'm excited. Bobby Wagner is, he was a fan favorite. Happy to have him back. I hated he left or had to leave. Obviously, the money's a lot. I think $7 million is kind of high when we only had -2 in cap space to start with.
Well, Quandre Diggs may be paying the price for his recruiting efforts with his salary.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, there was no linebackers on the roster. We signed Devin Bush, which is possibly functional if his knee works. And other than that, there's nobody left. So, yeah.
Don't Nick Bellore slander on this podcast, Brent. I feel like you should know better.
Nick Bellore is a linebacker and a fullback and a special teams captain.
I mean, if we're going to list everything on his resume.
Hey, honestly, though, Bellore looked great. What was that? 2 off seasons ago?
Yeah. In the preseason.
Preseason game. Yeah. I remember watching that. Like, okay, this dude can tackle.
He can tackle. He's probably not going to challenge for starting reps at linebacker, but I do like to at least throw that out there for fun. And Bobby coming back for me, Brent, it's just, I'm more sentimental about it. And especially when it comes to legends. And I feel like a guy who is a first ballot Hall of Famer in a Seahawks uniform, he deserves to go out as a member of the Seahawks, even if it maybe impacts the team in some way. But if you look at the other free agent linebackers out there, it's not like there's a ton of better options. And for $7 million that you're going to spend, well, for one, if you're going to spend more than $7 million at linebacker in free agency, you're overpaying. You might even be overpaying as it is, but maybe we'll find out something in terms of how the contract is structured. Maybe it is 1 year. Maybe they put a dummy year on there so they can extend the cap hit out a little bit. We'll have to see, but I just feel sentimental about it, and I'm glad he's coming back. But I also think it makes the team better because there's just not a lot of options out there, and it doesn't prevent them from drafting anybody either. Although I don't think we're going to see Bobby, not play his final year as a Seahawk.
Yeah, and I mean it's great to have him come back because we had, you had Marshawn Lynch come back. We had all these other guys have kind of came in and left, and then they come back right at the end to sign with us for just a little bit. So that's good to have
like Jaron Reed, for instance.
Oh my gosh, yes. I am so excited. I know a lot of Seahawks fans are kind of split on that one. He kind of had a rocky end with us and honestly was always kind of divisive, right? I mean, he was a really good run stopper for a while, but he couldn't rush the passer, and then randomly it flipped and he could rush the passer and not run stop. So I don't really know what happened there, but he's always been kind of divisive that way. A lot of people really liked him. A lot of people are like, thank God he left. And I didn't really keep up with him in Kansas City or Green Bay, but it sounds like they kind of had a similar experience.
Yeah, I wonder if if it was a situation where, and this is what I'm hopeful of, because I want a guy who can stop a run. I feel like all the guys that have left in free agency or the guys that they've cut, I don't see where they're improving in terms of their run defense. Obviously, Bobby would be an upgrade over, I don't know, somebody like Cody Barton, but who wouldn't be. And if he had his successful years stopping the run in Seattle, maybe he was trying to chase the dollars a little bit by being more of a pass rusher. I know that having Frank Clark next to him helped when he was in Seattle. That didn't help as much, it seemed, when he went to Kansas City. But hopefully there's some kind of career revitalization there. Otherwise, in terms of cost, I don't see it much more than a lateral move from Quentin Jefferson.
Oh, I think it's an upgrade from Jefferson. I thought Quentin Jefferson was a liability for the most part. He kind of got a few decent-ish sacks here and there, but other than that, I did not like seeing him on the field. The interesting thing with Reed is when he was at Alabama, Alabama ran a much more, traditional 3-4 scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Saban does not now, but at that time he did. And Reed played kind of that big 3-4 defensive end and was just absolutely excellent at two-gapping. So, and kind of stringing along edges, stringing along around the edge and keeping runs funneled inside. And that was what he was so good at. While most of the time it was linebackers or whoever else trying to get pass rush off of a blitz kind of around behind his back. So when he came to Seattle, it was like he totally changed his role and played a lot more just kind of a penetrating attacker, right? Mm-hmm. And we saw that a lot. He was always trying to jump gaps. And like I said, he kind of didn't seem like he fit the first couple of years and was an okay run stopper, and that was it. And then it kind of clicked for him at the end. But now that Seattle's supposedly running this partial 3-4, I don't know what it is exactly. I don't know. He might fit better. It might kind of bring him back to what he played in college.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking when I mention Quentin Jefferson's name. It's more of a worst case scenario. It's a lateral. And I think in terms of salary, it's relatively similar.
Yeah. It was 2 years, $10 million. Not bad at all.
Not a huge amount of money for a guy playing interior or on the defensive line anyway. But Brent, we do hope that maybe we find some Alabama players in the draft. Carl Scott, a member of this Seahawks defensive coaching squad, was a defensive backs coach for the Crimson Tide just a couple years ago. Are there going to be some guys that he's going to be able to help with identifying for the Seahawks defense? Guys who are fits for this particular style of defense.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So Carl Scott, I loved him at Alabama. We saw him kind of work with Trevon Diggs and Pat Surtain. And I mean, really, Alabama, just kind of looking back at the history from about 13-ish, all the way through about 2016, 17, right before Carl Scott got there. We had so many issues with outside corner. It was like the entire defense was just best in the country at absolutely everything except defending sideline go balls. They just, it was like a running joke with Alabama fans at the time was, hey, stand up, throw it down the right sideline as far as you can. It's going to be a touchdown. And after Scott came in, it was about the time Saban kind of changed his defense out of that old 3-4 to more of a 2-4-5-ish kind of defense. But that was also when Carl Scott came in and started doing a lot of work. And we saw other defensive issues crop up over the last few years. But outside corner, really since 2016, 17, has just been great. We don't see those downfield issues. And then, so I was excited when Seattle hired him. And then we see all last year what kind of picks up is the outside corner play. We put in Mike Jackson and Tariq Woolen, and neither of them really get beat deep. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
So that was cool to see. I saw the same improvements in the pros that I saw in college. So I'm like, okay, this dude can coach.
Well, maybe we should start there with the draft eligible players. I know the top ticket items for this Alabama team coming into the draft are Will Anderson and Bryce Young. But there's members of this secondary as well. You got Brian Branch, you got Jordan Battle, Eli Ricks, who's a corner. The other two I mentioned, safeties. Another safety, DeMarco Helms.
Yeah, DeMarco Helms.
Helms, there we go. Those are the other guys in the secondary that I'm seeing. I know you're high on Brian Branch, for instance.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I wrote an article about a year ago trying to detail just how Nick Saban has approached Branch's position, which is that, I mean, it's the slot cornerback, right? And I put in a whole bunch of work last year on this of looking at how Nick Saban approached it and how he looked even back in 2009. The slot corner was not your third cornerback. It was a guy that was a linebacker, but also did cornerback things.
Yeah.
And over the years, we saw basically every great corner that came through Alabama either tried to play star, which is like the slot corner, or either tried it or at least did it during off-season practices, tried to learn it. And that was just a thing where Saban's trying to get his absolute best defensive backs into that position, just because that's what he's always viewed as kind of the fulcrum of an entire defense is that spot. And, if you think back to a lot of the early 2000s, so much of the NFL is based on trying to get a team either into nickel or out of nickel and attacking that matchup. So that's kind of where Brian Branch came in. Like, okay, this dude is 6 foot 200, pretty normal sized, but thicker than a lot of cornerbacks these days. And he plays linebacker. I mean, he plays a linebacker on the edge, kind of the way in an old 4-3 would be the will. But it's this 200-pound guy that has to take on blocks. He has to carry a running back into the flats. He carries a tight end down the seam. If there's read options, he's kind of the taker on that. So it's all the things you expect a linebacker to do, and a 200-pound body that also has to go cover slot receivers.
Right.
And it's just one of those things. A lot of people think, oh, he's a hybrid of a corner and a linebacker as a safety, right? It's like, no, he is a cornerback that plays linebacker. And it's not quite the same as a safety. I've never really been able to verbalize that right. But
well, we know that the NFL will want to pay him as either a safety or a linebacker, and definitely not a corner, because those guys end up making all the money. So, but it will be interesting to see what position he ultimately commands when he does come into the NFL. Now, did you have some hopes that he would become a Seahawk, and have those hopes been dashed with the signing of Julian Love and knowing that Jamal Adams is coming back next year and having Quandre Diggs on the roster, and Ryan Neal was tendered as well? Does it feel like there may not be a spot for a guy like Brian Branch on the Seahawks?
I still have hope that if we could pick him up at 20, for a long time he was kind of under-noticed in national media. So I thought, hey, pick 20, maybe even top around 2. It seems like in about the last month, everyone on Twitter has found him. So 20 might be a pipe dream at this point.
Okay.
But no. If we can draft him, put him on the team, I don't care who else is there, find a way.
If they're at 20 and there's, I don't know, one of the top 3 receivers on the board, the top center on the board, and Brian Branch, which one would you be going with?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, we need a center so bad. Oh, it's been so long since we've had a functioning center.
Right.
But I'd probably still take Branch and then see if I could grab the next center somewhere in the second round.
All right. So you would settle for the second or third best center to go with your guy here.
Yeah, I think I would.
All right. Some of the other guys in the secondary too. Talk about how they could. Do you see them as possible fits? Any of them?
Maybe. So you've got Eli Ricks. He played all of like 3 games for us. He's a guy that showed up at LSU as a high 5-star recruit, was a SEC freshman, All-American, whatever you call it. Basically all the awards as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And then missed a year, transferred to Alabama, best part of the season, didn't win a starting job, then kind of got a starting job, played a few games, then missed the end. He's an interesting guy. He played very, very similar to more like how Seattle used to use those outside corners, just press, bail, cover 3, stay on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
The dude can press. I mean, he has long arms, long body, and just presses really, really well, and then stays with his guy down the sideline. I don't know if he can do much else other than that. We never really saw.
Yeah.
And then, there's like how fast is he? We don't really know. He ran a 4.6 back in high school. Supposedly ran a 40 at the pro day, but the number never came out, so I assume it was bad.
NFL.com has him down as the Alabama website, I think, has him as a 4.49.
I don't know if I believe that.
This is the NFLDraftBuzz.com that has 4.49. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I believe that.
Okay.
I think more of 4.5 to 4.6 range.
Okay.
But either way, he's a guy that showed very good hands and kind of skills down the sideline. So it would be more of a risky type pick, but one with a good bit of upside.
Yeah. Would you think a range of rounds would he go in 3rd through 5th type of range?
3rd would be high. I wouldn't do that. Someone might, just because he was a 5-star at LSU.
Yeah.
But 5th round, yeah, I could take a flyer on that.
All right. Other guys at safety. I suppose, if we're talking about Helms, probably talking more in terms of special teams as a potential late, 6th, 7th round type pick. Jordan Battle. Anything you want to mention about him?
Yeah, I hate it because I love both of those guys. They were great, just great teammates. Battle was a captain. He made a lot of great plays over the years, very important ones. 3-year starter, kind of a game-saving back-to-back tackles against Auburn in the Iron Bowl last year. Their Battle specifically is a great tackler, solid zone coverage guy, great communicator, all those things. Like just all around great safety, except he's just not very fast. And I think that's going to be kind of the deal breaker in the NFL. I don't think he can hang.
Yeah.
And I hate that. And DeMarco Helms is kind of in the same boat. He's a guy that tackles he's just a bone cruncher of a tackler. He's a guy that will decapitate people on the field and, taking souls left and right. But teams kind of figured out Alabama lost a game this year because someone figured out that Jalen Hyatt is faster than him and threw it deep over him 3 times. That is just, a pure speed. And both Battle and Helms, I think, ran 4.6-ish. So, yeah, special teams guys, depth pieces, good in locker room, great 6-rounders.
Well, one guy I know who is maybe even going to be out of reach for the Seahawks, although if there's enough hype at quarterback, is there a chance? Are you crossing your fingers that Will Anderson, who has been projected as even as high as the number 1 pick overall throughout some of the mock drafts up until, of course, the Carolina Panthers made the trade to number 1. Is there any chance that we can hold out hope? And would you be holding out hope as an Alabama fan that Will Anderson is there at number 5?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Will Anderson has been the best player in college football for the last 2 years. His 2021 season was, that was the best pass rushing season I've seen since, I don't know, maybe ever. Definitely the best since Alabama's Derek Thomas back in the day.
Yeah.
But and then it was this year he followed it up with Alabama's third best pass rushing season in Nick Saban's entire time, and it was a disappointment. Right? I mean, it was like, oh, Will Anderson's such a disappointment. It's like, guys, he's still like top 3 pass rusher in the country this year, just in pure stats.
Right.
One of the best Saban's ever had behind himself the year before. I don't know. It's expectations, man.
Oh yeah. If a guy isn't steadily improving towards incredible, then any slip back is going to be seen as a disappointment, right?
Yeah. But anyway, with all that said, I am absolutely livid at Jalen Carter for getting himself in all this off-field trouble, because a month and a half ago, people were talking, he was the talk of the town.
Right.
And if we could have got him more of that number 3 range for Arizona, guess who'd be there at number 5?
Well,
Will Anderson.
Arizona has been known to make some boneheaded mistakes in the past. I wouldn't put it past him.
Oh, I'm depending on him.
That's what we need. That's what we need, though, is for Arizona to go with anybody on defense not named Will Anderson, and potentially he
just trade out.
Falls to the Seahawks.
Maybe Oakland.
Sure,
trade for Oakland. Let them jump up, take 4 quarterbacks, first 4.
It's in the range of possibility, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's absolutely possible.
And one of those guys expected to go in the top 4 at quarterback is Bryce Young. Now, we've talked now about the potential of Will Anderson coming back to 5. What do you think about the idea of the Seahawks pairing some of those other picks that they got in the Russell Wilson trade and then going up and getting Bryce Young potentially at the number 2 overall spot, and you replace Russell Wilson with a guy who is a lot like Russell Wilson in terms of size, and that's your quarterback of the future?
I'm good. I'm good. Well,
You're out?
Somebody else. I'm out on that one. If Bryce falls all the way to 5, maybe is the insurance on just getting a quarterback for the future. But man, we got Geno Smith. Why are you going to trade up?
Yeah. I'm throwing it out there. If I'm going to have an Alabama fan on, I'm going to try and put you in some of these positions.
Yeah, I'm good. Keep your picks.
Okay. You're good with Geno.
I spent 10 years watching Russell Wilson do his spin around 3 lollipops in the backfield.
Yeah.
As we're all screaming at him to just do something. And it worked. I mean, it worked for 8 of those years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then until wasn't fast enough for that to keep working, and then we were all just mad and hated each other online.
Those are some good years, though.
They were great. Bryce is the exact same player. I mean, there's a couple of differences where it's Russell Wilson.
So he can't check down to a running back out of the backfield or throw a screen.
Absolutely not.
And
nope.
Can't throw over the middle for a slant.
Nope.
All right.
The check downs, the screens are awful. He'll do it after he's already looked at 4 other receivers and made 3 guys miss, and then he'll finally throw the check down.
Uh-huh.
But at that point, somebody's waiting on the running back. Bryce does throw a better slant than Wilson ever did. I'll give him that. They do exist, at least. But there's still there's something to that 5'10". I mean, there's just an extra click of hesitation, right? Yeah. There's always going to be that extra just a quick little tick, and then the timing is different. It's just a different timing, and the offense will never run as a play is called. And we had 10 years of that with Russell Wilson. Bryce Young is the same.
And Saban was okay with that?
Yeah. I don't think there's another option. And again, like I said, it's not like this was bad.
Right.
I mean, Bryce Young won a Heisman Trophy, right? And I'm bad-mouthing him here. But he did some phenomenal things. I mean, just absolutely mind-blowing plays. And as much as Bryce would get his own offense into trouble, 95% of the time, he also bailed them back out of trouble and scored.
That does sound familiar.
So it's one of those things. And I mean, most Alabama fans were just absolutely enamored with it. I think I was kind of jaded just from being a Seattle fan before that and kind of recognizing, oh, Bryce Young is having to make all these hero plays because he got them into this situation in the first place.
Right.
So all of that said, Bryce Young is absolutely great as a person. He's a great teammate, great leader. Can't ask for better. And I think a team that's not still dealing with the rebound phase of getting away from a Russell Wilson quarterback would love him. I don't think Pete Carroll will.
Well, let's talk about someone who is good on this Alabama offense, including Bryce Young. You got the running back, Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's talk about him a little bit. He feels like he is in that range of a Seahawks style running back. 5'9", about 200 pounds. I'm showing 4.3 speed here, which sign me up.
Gibbs is exciting, man. He's just fast enough and electric enough that he's going to make a whole bunch of people on draft Twitter mad. He's going to get drafted a little bit too high for a running back.
You think so?
And
where do you think he ends up going?
Top of the second round, I guess. Probably about where Ken Walker did.
Yeah.
He's exciting, man.
So could he be the number 2 after Bijan?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Bijan is something else. That dude is crazy to watch.
Yeah.
But
well, he's going to go in the first round
and
make some people mad. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can't wait.
In terms of other style or talk about Gibbs a little bit more. What have you seen from him that would maybe make it at all interesting as a compliment to Ken Walker?
I don't know if he kind of does a similar role as Walker would. He's just a big playback. The biggest difference, he's not as creative, I would say, as Ken Walker is, and does probably a better job of following a play as designed, sticking with his blockers, and then just planting and going. And he's probably a better receiver than Ken Walker, but he's also nowhere near as creative and definitely can't just straight up break tackles like Walker does. And neither one of them can pass block worth much of anything.
All right, so no Travis Homer insurance then, is what you're telling me.
No, he is not the Travis Homer. But, if you got Gibbs out there on third down, you want him running a route. The dude is a legitimate wide receiver, too. He had 500-ish yards receiving this year. He's a great receiver. Made quite a few kind of downfield crossing route catches on important plays.
So maybe some similarities to Bijan there, too.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's something Seattle would really be able to fit in. And plus, he's a shade under 200 pounds, and Pete Carroll loves 210 plus.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't think he's a guy you want to put more weight on. The little bit he'd gain in kind of strength would take away from what he's best at.
Well, on the offensive line, looks like there's a couple guys coming out of the draft, coming into the draft from Alabama. You got tackle Tyler Steen, and you got guard Emil Ekiyor.
Emil Ekiyor, yeah. So I think Emil Ekiyor is a guy, he was a great center in high school, highly rated recruit out of Ohio, I believe.
Cathedral High School.
Because he was thinking about going to Notre Dame. I remember that.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, very athletic. Got some really great spark scores back in the day when they still did that. And he was a 3-year starter for Alabama. Things never really materialized quite like we thought they would. He was okay, good at times, bad at times. Just kind of had a big range of results. It was like he had some great plays, some really bad plays. There's always kind of rumors swirling in the background of like, hey, motivation is an issue here. Never heard anything addressed officially, but I heard that a lot, kind of in the back channels, right? So I don't really know what to think about him.
Yeah, and we'd probably be talking about 5th round ish, I think. In terms of where he's slotted in terms of his talent, right?
Right. And he was a great center in high school, but then always played guard at Alabama.
Yeah.
So he never, and I think I'm one of those people that thinks center's the most important position on the line, whereas guard is not. So to me, like, okay, did he play center? Like, could he play center? Is that where he should have been?
Was there
I
a
don't
guy
know.
blocking him who was really, really good that kept him from playing that spot? I think is the question people who are listening or who aren't Alabama fans are going to have of you here.
Well, so there's Landon Dickerson a couple years ago, right? Landon Dickerson was an awesome center. I love that dude. But center's been a mess for Alabama the last 2 years. A couple of guys have rotated with each other and repeatedly got the other one benched. It's been kind of funny to watch. But yeah,
so he's had opportunities, and that leads you to believe that maybe not something that's going to work.
I'm not real high on Ekiyor. If you want a big body in the 6th, 7th round or so, sure.
How about Steen as a tackle? I mean, maybe backup tackle, maybe a guy that you could bump inside to a guard position. What would you say about him?
I like Steen. He came in from Vanderbilt last year, just kind of a graduate transfer. Wasn't really sure what to think of him. Like, oh, we have like actual functioning football players come from Vanderbilt. But he was solid. Played left tackle. He's a big guy, like 6'6", 320-ish or so.
Yeah.
He's an intimidating looking left tackle. And did a good job. He was a very good pass blocker. Kind of had some issues with speed rushers or guys doing little counter moves on the inside of him. He'd get his feet crossed up. But as a run blocker, he was very, very impressive as well. He'd definitely pancake a dude. I've seen kind of a range for a while. People were talking about him like, hey, this guy might be fringe first rounder. But then that just kind of died. I don't really know why. So I've seen him anywhere from 2nd round to 5th. 2nd round, I'd think about it. If he's there in the 3rd, yeah, absolutely. This is a guy that can play a legitimate starting left tackle in the SEC. Good run blocker, decent pass blocker, could probably play guard. I think a lot of people are projecting that. So, yeah, I think it'd be a great backup potential starter in the 3rd round.
All right. Well, I got 4 names left on my list that I don't think that we've touched on. And I want you to play general manager because these are guys that'll probably, I think there could be a 3rd rounder among this group. But the guys I'm thinking of are Henry To'oTo'o at linebacker, Byron Young on the defensive line, DJ Dale on the defensive line, and Cameron Latu at tight end. Of those 4 guys, you have the it could be any pick. You can choose the pick of which one you're going to use on which guy, but which one of those 4 would you be taking as the Seahawks general manager?
Ooh, I'm between Cam Latu or Byron Young there.
Okay.
Let's go Byron Young.
Because we need defensive interior.
We need defensive interior. And Byron Young is a guy that consistently improved over 4 straight years. So we saw him have an awful... He got thrust into a starting role as a true freshman and shouldn't have been, and it showed. He did a lot of shooting wrong gaps. Yeah, no, very similar to what we saw in Seattle last year with Puna Ford shooting off in one direction and the whole rest of the run going to where he just left. We saw a lot of that from Byron Young early on. But every year he got better and better. And by his senior year, he quietly made a lot of really good splash plays. Kind of had that fiery cheerleader presence almost on the line. Mm-hmm. Kind of kept the whole defense wrapped up and ready. And when it was time, when we needed a really big play, he came through quite often. But just to say it, Cam Latu is an exciting tight end. He was a pass rusher up until 2 years ago, made the switch. The dude has got crazy athleticism, and he can truck someone. Like he's not that fast, but get him the ball in the open field, and he'll Gronk stiff arm somebody into the dirt.
Oh yeah,
he's interesting. He was divisive with Alabama fans. He had some really bad plays, bad drops, and bad blocks. But he also had some really crazy good highlight blocks and highlight catches, and like I said, some trucks after the run or after the catch.
So in a tight end class that is relatively deep, then the expectation would be that maybe this is a guy you could get later on in the draft if you decide not to target tight end early. And really, it would be somewhat of a luxury for Seattle, considering that they have Fant and Will Dissly and quite an amount of depth at tight end that they could probably afford to wait and take a tight end late here.
Yeah, I think so. As much as I think Latu is a fun player, and I talk him up to other NFL teams for sure. I don't think when you've got 3 good starting tight ends, I'd take the defensive lineman is where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to discount the idea of taking one if there's a really good one available, but it does maybe speak to the idea that maybe there's some depth in the draft here too. We kind of glossed over Toa and DJ Dale. Anything you want to say about the final 2 guys on defense before we get on out of here, Brent?
No, not really.
Okay.
they might make training camp for someone.
All right. And we kind of locked up. I don't know if you heard this. We kind of locked up our linebacker spot here on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. We got
Bobby Wagner coming back.
One legitimate starter, one possible starter with Devin Bush that might be functional.
And then we draft Brian Branch and see you got your linebacker spots all locked up. You don't even have to worry about going to nickel. Kobe Bryant can compete on the outside. We're all set, right?
Yeah, I'm in. And then, hey, grab DJ Fluke or bring him back for guard.
That's right. He was at the Alabama Pro Day too. Did you see the pictures?
The dude looked like a samurai.
Oh my gosh.
I saw he made rounds. I had no idea. He just showed up at Pro Day and it was like, oh my gosh, look at this guy. He is ripped.
I thought he was like in professional wrestling mode now. Like I saw a side-by-side picture of his body when he was in Jacksonville before he got out of the league, I guess. And compared to now, holy smokes. Seriously, if you haven't seen the pictures, go look at DJ Fluker now.
Yeah, I mean, the dude looks like a bodybuilder. And then, crazy looking. So I don't know if he can still play lineman, but I love DJ Fluker. He's hilarious. He's one of my favorite personalities to come through Alabama over the years. And he was even funnier in Seattle, I think.
Yeah, I enjoyed him in Seattle. And, I don't know if there's still some competition to be had at the right guard spot. I know that Phil Haynes and, the center/guard that they got from Detroit has the potential to play in that spot too. But hey, bring DJ Fluker in for camp and have a little fun and see if he can still play.
Make him strength and conditioning coach, because whatever he did worked, man.
Brent Taylor, really want to thank you for coming on and breaking down this Alabama group coming into the draft this year. I have to expect that up on Roll Bama Roll that you guys are going to be covering all these guys all the way leading up to the draft.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're working through spring practice stuff right now. We just got bounced out of March Madness, so basketball coverage ends, sadly.
See, you brought it up. I didn't want to go there. But
I'm still hurting, man.
Sorry.
Still hurting. Anyway, but yeah, we'll have coverage all through the draft. I kind of make my rounds going through a lot of these NFL SB Nation sites. So I'll be around. And hey, if you ever get the chance, go check out my Brian Branch article from last summer. That's my baby. That's the one I
shoot me a link. I'll put it in the show notes and then everybody can see it there. And we'll have to all go check it out.
Perfect. Sounds good.
All right, Brett, thanks once again. And man, when we draft one of these guys, and hopefully it's Will Anderson, and hopefully it's on day one, and we're back here talking about it, because that would be awfully exciting. And yes, you would be the first person I call once that happens.
If Will Anderson drops to 5, I may not make it to the hospital.
And I think with that, there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.